Joining us now for World Brief and the review of some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Adefemi Akinsanya. Good morning, Adefemi, live in New York, reporting from the United Nations General Assembly.
Yes, we are. Good morning, Dr. Rubin. Good morning to you all.
Good morning, Adefemi.
There's a lot happening. Hi, Ayo. Hi, Rufai. Oh, my gosh, we've got the gang. We've got the gang all together today. You know, it's very, very early in the morning. We're about 5 hours away from you, or so we're 5 hours behind you, so it's around 3:54 in the morning here. But despite the time difference, despite the distance, I couldn't be happier to hear your voices this morning. I hope you're all doing well. I hope you all had a great weekend. Let's take you through what is happening around the world. Now, starting here, of course, here in New York, Arise News is live reporting from the 79th edition of the United Nations General Assembly. And looking ahead this week, today is the first day of the high-level meetings, the high-level gatherings of international leaders, of different international bodies and figures. So one of the things that are jumping out across the week will be, of course, the commencement of the general debate. We are expecting that, as usual, Brazil and Brazilian's President Lula da Silva will be the first one to take the stage, closely followed by the United States in terms of heads of states taking to that very famous stage and laying out their thoughts as it pertains to their countries, what issues they've been tackling in their countries, how their countries relate to the rest of the world, and what issues that they want to discuss at this general debate. So it is starting on Tuesday. But if you were wondering when it is that Nigeria will take the stage, it will be on Wednesday, on the second half of the session in the late afternoon towards the evening. Nigeria is billed to speak around 9 p.m. US time, which is around 3 o'clock in the morning, which isn't an ideal time slot for people in Nigeria, especially if they wanted to watch live and listen to what is happening as pertains to their country being represented at the United Nations. And talking about being represented at the United Nations, as a country, we already knew that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu would not be participating in person at the general debate, and instead he will be represented by Vice President Kashim Shettima, who will be taking the stage on Wednesday evening and laying out Nigeria's case at the general debate. It's also not very clear, though, whether or not the Vice President would also step into certain side conversations and side events that the president was supposed to be attending, being that those events are specifically tailored to heads of states. So it will be interesting to see how long he will be here for, how open he will be in terms of talking to the media and sharing what his thoughts are before the general debate and what his thoughts are thereafter. We will be following up on all of those events. But in addition to what is happening in the UN General Assembly, the HQ is right behind us, we will also be taking a lot of effort and care to take a look at events happening on the sidelines of UNGA, under the umbrella of UNGA and all of that. So looking at that specifically, Afreximbank, for example, they will be hosting a number of events throughout this week. And today, later on today, they will be launching a new platform. They're calling it the Global Africa Gateway, a platform that seeks to connect Africans on the continent to Africans in the diaspora in a push for greater collaboration and unity. So we'll be on the ground at their event later on today in Brooklyn and being able to hear specifically what their plans are for Africa, how it relates to Nigeria, the African continent, and of course the diaspora. Now, talking about Nigeria and diaspora, there is also going to be the first day of the Clinton Global Initiative taking place today, and we will also be participating. We will be covering that, and that will have a whole host of Nigerian entrepreneurs being presented at that event, at that conference. And one of those entrepreneurs will be founder and leader of Ebony Life Media, Mo Abudu. She will also be participating at the event, as I said, alongside a whole host of different types of tech, agriculture, financial and fashion entrepreneurs from Nigeria, from the African continent, and indeed the rest of the world. In addition to Mo Abudu and all of those other people participating in the Clinton Global Initiative, there will also be the Duke of Sussex, Prince Harry. You'll also have, for example, the London Mayor, Sadiq Khan, Bill Clinton himself, of course, First Lady Jill Biden, Chelsea Clinton too, as well as Bill Gates. So it's going to be quite a stacked roster at the Clinton Global Initiative conference later on today. And we will be bringing you all of the different updates from that and a whole lot more today and for the rest of the week. Moving on to the Middle East, and another issue that's being discussed extensively here at the United Nations is what we're seeing between Israel and Hezbollah. The United Nations has actually warned of a catastrophe as tensions between Israel and Hezbollah continue to escalate. Now, what we are seeing now is the likes of Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu come out over the weekend and say in very strong words that Israel will be continuing to take whatever action necessary to protect their own security. Now, in response to that, you do have very senior members of Hezbollah saying that they too are not going to take it easy when it comes to Israel, and specifically they will be entering a new phase, namely an open reckoning with Israel. So very, very strong words coming out between both sides. And in addition to that, you did have Israel's ambassador to the United Nations take to the stage on Sunday and talk about how since October 7th, Hezbollah had fired 8,000 rockets into Israel. Just to put a specific number to the level of escalation that they are experiencing in Israel. But let us also not forget that Hezbollah has been very, very vocal in the fact that Israel has been striking targets, has been striking civilians, has been striking commanders within Hezbollah. And they say that their latest strike on commanders in Hezbollah in the Lebanese capital, Beirut, killed 45 people. So as it stands, it's very, very strong actions and words happening from both sides. And you do have the likes of many international bodies, including the United Nations, trying their hardest to get both sides to take a step back and bring their temperatures down. Moving on to the African continent now, and Kenya has pledged to deploy 600 police officers to Haiti. They are going over to Haiti to join already quite a number of Kenyan police officers in the country in order to tackle the gang violence that we are seeing, especially concentrated in the Haitian capital Port-au-Prince and in other areas of the island nation. Now, with this deployment of 600 Kenyan police officers, that will take the total number of police officers from Kenya who are helping the security effort to 1,000. And William Ruto, the Kenyan president, the last time he was in Haiti, talked about his plans to establish this already Kenyan-led security mission in Haiti and establish what he calls is a fully fledged United Nations peacekeeping mission. Now, in order to do that, there has to, of course, be a whole lot of administration going on, conversations being had, especially between the United Nations Security Council. They will debate this later on this month. And if they do approve this and they do set this path, allow for Kenya to move towards creating a peacekeeping mission in Haiti, it will create a situation where more resources can be deployed, where more funding will be released in order to help this security effort. Because as it stands now, one of the greatest constraints in the security forces being able to protect Haiti and the people therein has been a lack of funding and a lack of adequate equipment. So a lot happening in the global order over the last couple of days. And of course, a lot of that happening under the purview of the United Nations. So it will be very interesting, my friends, to hear your thoughts before we move on to the papers.
All right, let's go straight to it, Femi. I mean, yeah, Kenya sending more troops to Haiti. What Kenya is simply doing is America's dirty job. America should be able to oversee that area, but they've called the Kenyans to do the dirty job for them, provide some security as regards the disgruntled nature of the state of play of security in Haiti. And because of that, in return, they're also getting a lot of perks. Coca-Cola announced some investment, when Ruto went to America and the like. So, I mean, they're getting a lot of perks for this work. So both parties are both benefiting, but the people of Kenya are really disgruntled on ground. As regards Israel, I think Israel is just trying to be hypocritical. You're saying over 8,000 artillery was shot in. What have they done to Lebanon? Can you see the level of devastation they have done after October 7? So Israel is just trying to be hypocritical. And I think somebody out there at the United Nations should be able to tell Israel the hard truth. And America should stop supporting all this madness and shenanigans. The world needs peace, not madness.
All right, UNGA, thank you very much, Adefemi, for bringing us all the details from there. And this year, Africa will be big on the agenda, of course, especially with regards to where we are with meeting the SDGs. Only 6 more years to go till 2030, and we still need about $1.6 trillion to be able to meet up with the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. Let's see if some of our world leaders, from all around the African sub-Saharan continent would be able to get that much needed finance to ensure that they're able to catch up with the rest of the world with attaining SDGs 2030. Beyond that, of course, we'll be also looking at technology. The Summit of the Future is also happening, and beyond the Summit of the Future is technology and also the infrastructure gap that unfortunately Sub-Saharan Africa, currently faces. Alongside the other things, I'm hoping we can also hear from you what happened with the Gates Foundation goalkeepers. I saw you had dinner with some other journalists as well, at that function. It'll be interesting to find out what the details are and what's in it for us as a continent and, of course, as a nation in terms of Nigeria.
Well, the big issue about the 79th United Nations General Assembly, we started yesterday in New York, characteristically, is the fact that it is taking place against the background of a world that is facing crisis, of a United Nations Security Council that is dysfunctional, and a world that is facing challenges from Sudan to Ukraine to the Middle East, where there is the fear, of a clear escalation of crisis, an escalation of war again in that axis. So these are some of the issues that summit will be looking at. Yesterday, they came together with a 42-page Pact of the Future document, which is to guide discussions. Where Russia tried to oppose it, about 15 countries abstained, but we'll see when the debates begin, today, tomorrow, and then the process ends on Wednesday. 131 presidents in attendance, monarchs, prime ministers, and participants from 193 countries. But I think that the major issue is that this is against the background of, conflict in the world. A dysfunctional Security Council, and a multilateral institution that seems not to be serving its purpose, having been created after World War II. In Middle East, Hezbollah and Israel, they seem to be reenacting the same conflict between Israel and Hamas. Over the weekend, they were firing rockets back and forth. The fear of the international community is about World War III, as some people have said. Finally, Kenya. Yes, Kenya now has over 1,000 troops. Kenya is leading the multinational support system, MSS, it is called. They've been there since July 2023, having been empowered by United Nations Resolution 2699 of 2023. But Haiti needs to be saved. There's gang war with one man called Barbecue saying that he will face even the United Nations troops with, sexual violence on the rise, poverty, violence, crime in a country that is very well resourced. It's unfortunate, the crisis in the world against the background of which the 79th UNGA is taking place.
Right. Well, thank you very much for all of your comments there. And indeed, there is a lot happening. Ayo mentioned the goalkeepers that will happen on later on this week. And of course, the SDGs will be bringing you all of those updates as and when they happen over the course of the week. But thank you very much for all of your comments. Let's move on to the newspaper headlines happening across the world. And of course, we'll start in Nigeria with the front page of This Day. Now, I have to say that This Day, as well as almost all of Nigeria's dailies this morning are focusing, of course, on Edo and the results out of the Edo State election. So naturally, this day is, of course, leading, just like most of these papers, with the news of the APC candidate Monday Okpebolo being the one who emerged as governor-elect of Edo State in an election that has been marred by allegations of manipulation as well as transparency concerns. If we now move on to the front page of the New Telegraph, again, they are staying on the outcome of the elections in Edo State. And the New Telegraph has Monday Okpebolo surrounded by APC governors, including Dakwa Abiodun of Ogun State, celebrating his victory at the polls. Its headline on the New Telegraph says INEC declares Okpebolo winner with 291,667 votes. The Daily Trust now is unsurprisingly also leading with the Edo State election, with the PDP's reaction to the result declared by INEC. They are, of course, the PDP rejecting those results as Godwin Obaseki has called for calm. But essentially, the political party he's a part of has been continuing to talk about how these results were not the true mandate of the people, how there had been allegations of vote stuffing, of vote buying across the pond. So a very messy situation that we're seeing happening in Edo there. If we move on to The Guardian now, it will just take a step away from looking at Edo and the outcome of the elections. And Guardian is actually looking at health crises in northern Nigeria specifically. If we look at the bottom page of the paper, they talk about how cholera has claimed the lives of 22 people in Katsina and Adamawa states. And then also looking at the fact that over in Borno State, there are fears that more than 230 health facilities had been destroyed. This is, of course, as Borno as a state reels from the flooding following that dam bursting. So quite grave concerns for health and security happening in northern Nigeria as it stands. And then finally, if we take a look at the front page of the Vanguard features a story on the top left-hand corner that says the federal government has freed 6 of the hashtag End Bad Governance protesters. But let us not forget that 1,400 protesters still remain in custody there. Let's move on now to some African papers. The Daily Nation of Kenya is looking at parliamentary spending and an audit therein. Essentially what we're seeing in Kenya is that it has emerged that the State House and the Interior Ministry spent nearly 4 billion Kenyan shillings outside of the budget, with very little disclosure made about the need for that spending. Now, it's worth noting that spending outside the budget in Kenya is allowed, but for certain circumstances, most especially things like emergency or any type of disaster response. So the front page of Daily Nation is asking, well, where's the emergency? Why have you been spending so much money outside of the budget? What is it for? What's it going to? And that is why they've been auditing parliamentary spending in Kenya. Let's look at some other newspapers coming out from around the world. And the Daily Mail is looking at the United Kingdom, and Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner is focusing on her because she has hired a photographer who will be paid £68,000 as a salary. That's just over 150 million naira, if you were wondering. And of course, this is going to be part of taxpayers' monies because this is a public office. So she's hired this personal photographer, as many people do. And the issue here is that while prime ministers often do hire photographers to document their work in their positions, Angela Rayner will now be the first deputy prime minister to do so. Now, this is happening against the backdrop of her being under fire last week and in the extended past for accepting gifts of clothing from a Labour Party donor, and that definitely created somewhat of an uproar. So the angling behind this article is that Angela Rayner has decided to create a job for this personal photographer in order to improve her public-facing image. So there we have that story on the front page of the Daily Mail. And if we move on to the Daily Mirror, The Daily Mirror also looks at UK politicians, this time with UK Chancellor Rachel Reeves and her latest effort to generate more money into public coffers. Now, the Labour Party conference, it started on Sunday actually and continues into this week. And at the conference, you did have the Chancellor talk about how she will close the gap between how much tax is owed in this country, in the United Kingdom that is, and how much is actually being collected. She says that that gap is worth £40 billion. And she's trying her hardest to get that money back and put it into the public coffers. Because I know, Rufai, you've talked about a lot about how Labour now, since they're in the hot seat, they're having to find a way to get money without raising taxes. It seems as though this is their latest attempt to do so.
Well, thank you very much, Adefemi. I will take this story further with Rotus during business. I think we'll be touching on some of the, on that speech by Rachel Reeves and maybe even touch on Angela Rayner at the moment as well. But thank you, as always. Good to see you and look forward to you bringing us all the reports and details from UNGA, the 79th UNGA in New York.